So South Africa, of course, readying itself to host the event over the next 3 days. There's a lot of talk around the Chinese President Xi Jinping. He touched down yesterday. South African academic, it's Professor Paul Tembe, has released his latest book. It's entitled Xi Jinping and Thriving China-South Africa Relations in a New Era. It discusses and explores a couple of secrets behind the two countries' relations. I wonder if the good professor will let me in on a few of those secrets. He joins me now. Professor Paul Tembe, good morning to you and appreciate your time. So why the timing of the book now? Was this planned around BRICS or is that just happenstance? Good morning. Congrats on the new book.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for having me. There are no coincidences in life. Last year, I released a book. I published a book on Xi Jinping thoughts through South African eyes. So this book this year, it was an organic move, because if you write about President of China, it's like, what is his next move? What is happening globally? And in the year 2023, there's nothing that is drawing the public eye or the global public eye as the BRICS that is taking place. And this seems to be the BRICS that is going to bring the watershed in multiple systems in the world, as we live in the most precarious time in our global history. So the book is an organic following of the book from last year. And I've been a China scholar for the last 2 decades. So I've published a lot on China, and I've already published 3 books on China. So this was a natural consequence.
And I'm glad it's a natural consequence as well, because it gives me a chance to talk to you, Prof, as well. So just take me a little bit into the book then. What are you hoping someone who reads this is going to get out of this? Is this the focus on Xi Jinping, the man, the president of China? Is this about China-South Africa relations? What's your real focus in the book?
The book last year, let's start from there. The book last year was about the governance of China by Xi Jinping, the thoughts of Xi Jinping. So this year, I'm trying to look into how does that thought of governance work in South Africa-China relations. So that is the main thing about the book. I try to critique both sides of the relationship. What is China doing vis-a-vis South Africa, and what is South Africa doing vis-a-vis China? And at the same time, I try to be the devil's advocate, or the book tries to be the devil's advocate of this relationship. That what are the bottlenecks? What are the things that are stumbling South Africa from accessing low-hanging fruits from China-South Africa relations? Because you have to remember that China, as the new kid on the block in the international arena, so to speak, you find that it's got limited or very short institutional memory. And in order to enhance relations, bilateral relations and diplomatic relations with a given country, you must establish institutional memory. South Africa's institutional memory is both South African with its histories, but it is mostly Western and rational and in ideology, so to speak. So I'm trying to explore those corridors, that how can, as China tries to court Africa, and South Africa in particular, there are lots and lots of low-hanging fruits. But what you find are disparities of parallel roads, one going the other direction and one going the other, because of the value system, because of customs, because of traditions, because of forms of governance. So I try to unpack those and say what the two parties can do in order to solve that problem. But I also focus on South Africa and identify 5 of them, which I can mention 4. The first one is lack of public awareness. Every time there's BRICS and FOCAC, or rather when South Africa hosts BRICS and FOCAC, it is as if we have just discovered China that particular day. And we've had several occasions to host BRICS and FOCAC. So there is a lot of lack of public awareness vis-a-vis China and its ideals and intentions. And it's almost zero information on what are South Africa's intentions vis-a-vis China. So although China is here in South Africa and it's helping a lot and it's investing billions and billions of US dollars, we are still ignorant about China. But most crucial is that we don't understand China, or people on the ground don't understand China. So that is lack of public awareness. Number two, if you want to draw the FDI, you must clearly state the incentive of the FDI, the exemptions, tax rebate, and all that. But in South Africa, that is layered in policy only. We don't have it proclamated into the law of the country. Second one, for a country like South Africa that has been a truth and trauma for more than 300 years, the notion of planning and implementing within 5 and 5 years, depending on the incumbent, and whenever the new incumbent comes in, has to get rid of all old policies and put new ones, and all those are not proclamated into law, puts South Africa at risk, and that being unable then to access, because it looks like South Africa is constantly morphing with its policies, which are not proclamated into law. Number three is the one that I will say we tend to read from the old book, meaning our type of governance, which is neoliberal. We read from the old book, but we want to eat from the new book. The new book being the South-South cooperation, the rise of the global South to becoming a system of its own. So there are disparities between our form of governance and what the new emerging geopolitical landscape. Because the emerging global South, the emerging geopolitical landscape, it's no longer a peripheral. Emerging markets and developing nations are no longer at the periphery. They are a system of its own. That is why, as President Xi has proclaimed the global civilizational initiative, that each and every nation has got its own civilization.
And Prof, I don't want to cut you short, and I also don't want you to give away number 4, because I actually want people to go buy your book. I don't want you to give the entire book away.
Thank you.
I want to ask you this in closing as well, just very briefly. I don't want you to give the whole book away and the whole purpose of it. I just want your thoughts on this. Apart from being an author, obviously also an academic in these studies, do you get a sense, as I say goodbye to you, that we as a country, South Africa, is still giving too much away to China? China is definitely more advantageous in this relationship than we are. They're gaining more than we are. Would you agree or disagree?
There are two answers, or two-pronged answer to that. Do we give away? The first answer, we are giving less away than we did previously, giving to the West for free. That's number one. Number two, do we give away? Yes, because we don't have our systems in place for trade. The disparities I was talking about, I mentioned earlier, those are the disparities that put us at a weaker position. For example, in terms of trade deficits that we are talking about now, China has gone a long way to reduce the trade deficit. The latest one was to cancel the notion of that we must have frozen fruits or frozen vegetables being exported to China. So in order to speed up and close the deficit, China has got a list of more than 200 products that South Africa can deliver now to China. Yeah. But we're still unable to. We don't have our systems in place. So it's not give away to China. We have to clean our house and fix our house first.
So it's the cleaning of the house and the fixing of the house, and hopefully that comes up with a big broom at BRICS this time round. Prof, thank you very much. All the best with the book, and thank you for taking time to join us. Academic and author Professor Paul Tembe joining us. A brand new book from him entitled Xi Jinping and Thriving China, South Africa Relations in a New Era. If you enjoy that kind of read, I'm sure you can go find that online or at your local bookstore.